Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing? Everyone's good? Happy St. Patrick's Day. My name's Sam. This is Brent.
I'm Brent.
This is Mike over here.
Hey there.
And what are we doing today, boys?
We're going to do a little jamming. We're going to play some cool tunes from the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Talk about being in a band.
We're going to play all of the riffs that will get you kicked out of Long and McQuaid. In Long and McQuaid. So we're just going to start with a little jam here. So here we go. Right then, so we're going to start dissecting some famous songs here, and you know, talking about how we like to play them. And the first one that I want to talk about today is "Smoke on the Water," which is definitely the #1 riff for getting kicked out of Long and McQuaid. I've got special permission to play it in here today. So
Head office.
Yeah, from the head office. So, you know, I think sort of a reoccurring theme with my favourite rock riffs is something called syncopation. Who knows what syncopation means? Yeah, great. So syncopation is playing not on the beat, okay? And if you think about "Smoke on the Water," like if I play it a little bit here, I'm going to show you where the beat is with my foot. Okay. So a huge amount of what I'm doing there is off the beat. And, you know, if I played that riff very straight, not how it's written, it wouldn't be very good at all. Like if that riff was written like this. that sounds like I wrote it. You know, that's terrible. So yeah, we're gonna jam this one a little bit right now, and yeah, let's just give it some.
All right, let it rip.
Yeah, so, you know, just a really fabulous hard-hitting riff there, and I just love the way that everything's introduced in slowly. You know, it's the guitar riff for a little while, and, you know, then there's some cool stuff on the hi-hats and everything.
Yeah, the layers are great in that song.
Yeah, and just that bass line, you know, that coming up chromatically like that, you know. Love how everything really complements everything there.
Yeah. Well, you get kind of the layering rhythmically too.
Right.
Because we have that syncopated guitar part, and as the hi-hats and the snares start coming in, really straight, so you get that sort of contrast between all of it, which really helps build up that sort of rhythmic tension through it.
Especially with that bass line, actually, that's just straight up eighth notes, right? Just...
Except for once it gets to the top.
Right.
And so it syncopates there.
Complements the riff on the guitar. Yeah. Brent, we're going to talk about Sunshine.
Of your love, of your life, of your...
That's the one, yeah.
I was calling it Sunrise earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, Sunshine. You know, one of my favourite bands, Cream. Maybe like the first proper rock band in many regards. And I would definitely consider Ginger Baker to be a pioneer of rock drumming, you know, paving the way for John.
Yeah, he was a big influence for me. He was the first drummer that I saw that had the big drum kit, the double kick and double bass. played like a jazz guy behind a big rock kit, which was pretty cool. And so this song is weird, and I played it wrong for most of my life because really, even though there's no real apparent snare part through the verses of this song, he plays on the downbeat all the time. So what I mean by that is he's always playing on the one somehow. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And I couldn't get that, and in fact I argued many times that point with many musicians. And the lesson that I learned there was that you don't always have to be right. So yeah, once I got on board and started really listening to all songs for that matter, everything started to fall into place. So yeah, I think we'll do a little bit of this song, and I'll see if I can do it okay.
What you were playing originally?
Yeah.
And then we'll show them what it actually is?
Yeah, we could do that, yeah, sure. Yeah, it might screw you guys up though.
Yeah.
It might screw me up, I don't know.
So we're going to play what Brent had been playing wrong for years. Just to sort of hear the context of what it's at.
Yes, thanks for, yeah.
And that's part of being in a band, is trying to throw the drummer under a bus as many times as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, if you make a mistake, give the drummer a dirty look, and no one will know it was you. Okay, so 2, 3, 4.
That was hard to play. Yeah.
So do we want to do that the other way now?
Yeah, we'll try it the proper way now. So I was really just playing a basic rock pattern. You should notice the difference right away.
Okay. So let's jump back in. So 2, 3, 4.
So was that apparent? Was it different? Did it sound different? Did it feel different? The feel is the big thing for me.
Yeah. I love that guitar riff as well, and something that I talk maybe a little too much about is you know, hitting things, and you know, I see a lot of people playing that riff, and you really want to. You can just like hear the attitude a little better when you're digging in a little harder.
And the thing that really helps kind of punch those syncopations in is the space in between the notes,
right.
Especially for that lick where we have.
Yeah, right. Because that's on the and every time, isn't it? With that.
So if you played through those notes, you wouldn't get the same sort of tension between it.
Yeah.
And so really making sure that those spaces that you're playing are exactly what they're supposed to.
Totally.
Changes it huge. Like, what would it be without that? Like.
Yeah, it just feels strange, doesn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it really changes it just by...
That's how it sounds when I play on bass.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Question here.
Can you explain what you did differently and how you were counting that mentally the second time?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the first time around, it was really truly just a basic rock beat, where the one or the downbeat was my kick drum. As opposed to the snare drum. So the first time sounded like this. And then the second time started on the snare drum. So same count, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And that's the difference. And once the song is going, it's really hard to hear the difference, which was the issue that I had too, right? I would just always play it starting on the one with the bass drum, and it starts actually with the hands after the first cymbal crash. Then it goes into 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Ginger Baker might be the angriest person in music.
If you've got Netflix, watch Beware of Mr. Baker. It's fabulous. Yeah, I think, you know, a reoccurring theme there, syncopation. All of these amazing rock riffs that we love so much, I think all of them are going to have that in common.
I think that's the big thing, is really making sure those syncopations are strong.
Yeah.
And being comfortable playing them too, because it's all over music.
And just bearing that in mind when you're writing. Okay, so interesting thing about this riff, when you think about what's going on here, the guitar is doing the harmony. You know, that's setting up what chords we're doing. If you think of that first riff, that's just a D major arpeggio, and then the second one, you know, we're over that C chord, and the third one we're over that G. And actually the interesting thing that's happening here is on the bass.
Mm-hmm. So the guitar really kind of creates like a pedal point and sort of a figure that keeps repeating the entire time, and sort of really lays out with the harmony and what you're hearing for it. And then the bass is kind of carrying the melody for most of that part, which is pretty not typical. Like in all the times that I'm playing shows and everything, it's so rare that I actually get to do a feature or anything. Normally it's all kind of down there. Like I think I make all my money below the 7th fret, and most bass players probably do. Yeah. But so we can switch this around and sort of give it a different sense by switching who's playing what.
Yeah, so just for a laugh, the main riff, Mike is going to play on the bass.
Going to try and play on the bass.
I'm going to play the bass part on the guitar.
Yeah.
We were actually going to do 4 there, but that's okay.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah. So there's a pretty big difference when the bass is kind of changing the function of what it's doing in a song. Because everyone's ear is sort of trained to hearing the bass really low, kind of longer notes, or sort of laying out the function and the rhythm of it.
Yeah.
But in a case like that, where the actual song is, the bass is carrying the melody, and all the guitar is just laying the chords out.
Totally. Let's hear it for Mike playing that difficult guitar riff on the bass there.
Yeah. I'll probably get fired for doing that.
It's forbidden. All right. And another riff, which I'm doing all of them today, all of the forbidden riffs.
Yeah.
Another great syncopation one. I'm going to do Highway to Hell, and anyone who's ever played this in a band will probably know that this doesn't start on beat number 1. It starts on the end of 3. Okay. So if you think about that riff. Just 3 chords, but played really, really nicely and effectively with syncopations again. And it's just something that's so iconic. I think you could play those 3 chords in that order to 50% of the world's population, and they would know what that song is. It's a good one. So, what do you say, fellas?
Also a tough drum fill, which after the first chorus, leading back into the next bridge and verse, the drums follow the guitar line, which I might only hear about 50% of drummers actually play in the right spot, or they come up with their own way of playing it so that it sounds like it's in time. So we'll maybe go through that a couple of times.
Yeah.
But for now, we'll just go through the whole thing.
For sure.
Well, not the whole song, but maybe.
Yeah. So here we go. What I love about that is the space. There's so much space in that song, and like a lot of more modern rock doesn't have those big gaping holes of nothingness, and I think that's something that I really love about riffs from the 70s in particular. Just having those big extended gaps. Totally awesome. And another thing I love about that tune as well is sort of the lack of bass until the chorus.
And that's a big thing, is a lot of those old tunes, the bass isn't always in right off of the beginning of the song, and sometimes holding off till a chorus or maybe even a second verse, sometimes, or a bridge or dropping out, creates such a huge difference.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing in Free All Right Now. Am I correct? Is that right? Is there no bass in the verse of that?
Yeah.
And then the bass comes in that song with that great well-known riff.
Yeah. That I don't know. That one.
Yeah. I'm going off topic because
I'm way too young for that song. I'm free. What? All right now, free. What?
That's some British stuff.
Yeah. But that's a great one, like, because if the bass came in right at the beginning of that song too, when that build comes in for the chorus, that song would feel completely different.
Yeah. And it's like anything. You can't lay everything on the table to begin with because nothing's left. And like thinking about that when you're playing solos as well and trying to introduce things slowly. And yeah, man.
Because you want somewhere to go, especially with bands. I find when it's like a 3 or 4 person band, it can be really tough to kind of get the same energy when you're playing songs live that you would, or what you're used to when they're recording. Because sometimes you have to adapt things.
Yeah. I was going to touch on that a little bit drum-wise, because most students, when I say we're going to play an AC/DC song, are all, oh, well, that's easy. And I'm like, well, okay, let's give it a try, and let's just see how easy it is. And this is usually what I get. So it's either this song or Back in Black. This is usually what I get. And it doesn't matter the age of the student, doesn't matter how long they've been playing. In their minds, they know they're playing the right pattern, but with absolutely zero feel. And that's sometimes really super hard to teach because a lot of that is instinctual. But at the same time, just making some simple changes about how you're playing, like opening the hi-hat up and not playing the top all the time, and really getting a shushy sound out of it to match the sound that's coming out of the guitar makes a huge difference. So instead of and the hi-hat, the downbeat or the 1 every time carries over into the next note, so it sounds more together instead of like 8 notes. Yeah.
Can we play that terribly for a laugh?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. With Mike as well, so we'll do everything wrong. We'll have, you know, the
so it'll basically be just like an hour ago.
Yeah. And one thing too to pay attention to, just to tag on to what Brent was talking about in terms of 8th notes on the hi-hat. As a bass player, that's one thing I listen to so much, is how they're playing 8th notes. Is there's a huge difference between and it can really change the feel of a tune, especially connecting with the drummer on those kinds of things.
I'm going to do one thing differently as well. So the chords that I was playing last time we played it were power chords. That's just root and 5th. So there's no 3rd in that. It's not major, it's not minor. Now, something I see a lot of beginners doing as well is making those chords major. So you get... So let's just make it completely terrible this time and do... Okay, no applause for that. I don't blame you.
That's funny that's really what it sounded like a little while ago. Yeah.
That sounded like, you know, the open mic night jam.
Yeah. Is there anything noticed out there about how we were playing versus what we had done earlier that really caught your ear?
Everything you were doing.
Everything, yeah.
Next we're going to do an Iron Maiden tune. Is that right, Brent?
Yeah.
And I don't know, who knows about playing to tracks here? Anyone know about that? Oh, here we go. All yours, Brent.
All right, so over the years, music hasn't been as lucrative as it could be. So we've come up with some ways to add extra members to the band without deducting any money from our paychecks. And playing along with backing tracks is a really important thing and a really huge thing these days. So my regular band, which is called Sugar Snap, We use backing keys for the whole show. We all sing and everything, but most of the keyboard lines are all played from a laptop. And so we're going to do a little bit of that. I've layered in some guitars for Sam to play harmony with. And I don't know, we'll let her rip and see how it goes. Is there any Maiden fans here? Anyone? Yeah, good. Oh yeah, Billy. Yeah, I should have known. Yeah. And they were actually a huge influence on me, particularly the drummer named Clive Burr, who passed away of MS, unfortunately. That guy was insane. He could play at breakneck speeds and as loud and hard as anybody I've ever seen. He was amazing. So this is kind of a tribute to, for me, to Clive Burr. Hopefully it's okay.
That's a fun one to do, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm tired now. And that is 10 beats per minute slower than the actual record tempo of that song that he plays without a metronome. So that's pretty incredible. So the same kind of feel ideas in this song. And because it's so fast on the recording as a kid, it's really hard to, we didn't have ways of slowing stuff down unless you had a reel-to-reel, which back in the 70s and 80s was like $5,000. So you do your best to kind of figure out what was going on. But for me, the hi-hat was the key in that song as well, because it's not just, there's that real emphasis on two notes over and over at breakneck speed, which I think was 170. Is that what it was? 170 beats per minute. It's crazy.
Yeah, it jumps from 120 to 170.
Yeah, dealing with that tempo shift, that's a tricky one as well, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, I think we detailed that.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing too. Even how you're building your tracks.
Yes.
Too is how you have to accommodate for that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's really hard to change a metronome in something to have two different tempos or three different tempos in a song, and there's actually three different tempos in this song because the chorus is pushed as well. So that is a kind of a trick that we do to make it so that it does sounds like we're not playing to tracks or we're not playing to a metronome. You know, and I mean, if you're hearing keys or you're hearing vocals, it's pretty obvious that, you know, we're playing to something. But if we didn't tell you we were playing to tracks, it might be really hard to know that we weren't, or we were using tracks. Yeah.
I think playing with tracks is especially useful when, you know, you're doing like the cover shows at the bar, and, you know, maybe 2 or 3 songs have got a keyboard, but you don't want to, you know, have a keyboard there the whole time if it's not going to be doing much, you know. Like the whole tracks thing is a lot of fun, and I enjoy doing that.
Yeah, it's quite common in country too. So I do a lot of country shows kind of all around Alberta and Canada. And it's gotten to the point where there's a lot of production in most popular music today. And not everyone has the budget to fly people kind of all over the country. Or even within the city, you might not be able to find a pedal steel player or a piano player. But you love the song, it's a great song, but the biggest hook on that song is pedal steel or banjo, and you don't know anyone that plays any of that. So sometimes it comes down to budgeting and just really trying to emulate that track live. So when I'm playing with artists that hire me to go out with them, a lot of times we'll have play-along tracks that we're running with, so that the artist can really get the song that they're playing across the same way that they wanted to in the studio. So really trying to emulate those same feelings and sounds that you can't always get live.
And it's not cheating. People, I get questioned on this all the time. You guys aren't playing, you guys aren't doing this. Well, we are. We're making it the best we can make it as it sounds on a record, and that's really what we do. So not only do we have to do that, but we have to entertain at the same time. Yeah. So it's really, truthfully, one of the best ways for drummers to practice, because as soon as you start drumming without all the vocals and all the other things that are going on that are cueing you in the song, you have to know the song more than you've ever known it before. Yeah. And it's a really, really great practice tool. Plus it keeps you in time. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to do it. Oh, here we are, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about playing to a click?
Yes.
What you do when you fall off the click and how you drag the band back when they're pushing you around?
Well, that never happens. Right? Well, that's a scary thought, but it does happen for sure, whether it's a glitch on the computer or whether the drummer falls asleep. We're not going to mention any names, but yeah, and really it's just a matter of everybody communicating with their eyes on stage. So really all eyes become on me, and I just try and find the one again. And hopefully it's not a complete train wreck, but yeah, that definitely does happen. But once you do this long enough, not only does it diminish the chance of that happening, but you kind of know how to recover. And so what's great about us, and that's my bass player, by the way, that's Myron Wagner. What's great about us is that he has things set up as a safety on separate tracks on a pedal board. So if we do happen to lose our space, he can stop one and start another pretty much right away.
So was he talking about you falling off the cliff? Like throwing you under the bus?
Yeah, he's probably personal.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, so there that holds true to your point. Yeah. Perfect. Good job. Thanks, Myron. Did I answer your question though?
Yes.
Okay.
Bruford, when in doubt, roll.
Yes, that's a pretty amazing...
And then let him hit the button.
Yeah, okay, I like that's a great idea, Stan. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to do an Eagles song, and I've got to tell you, Mike blew all of our minds on this one. We're going to do Take It Easy, and yeah, you tell that story. You tell.
Yeah, so I'm sure everyone or most people here have heard Take It Easy, heard the Eagles. Great band. I know we had been playing Take It Easy in a band that I played with for probably years, and we had a sub drummer come in once when we were playing in Grand Prairie, I think, and he started asking, or we were running through tunes, and so we went through Take It Easy, and we got into this huge discussion about how the intro of Take It Easy goes, because tons of people think there's like a weird 9/8 bar, or they drop a beat somewhere, because everyone thinks that starts on like right on one. And you thought that? I thought that for years.
Yeah.
Same thing?
No.
He's trying to get points back, I think.
He's a liar.
He's a drummer.
Yeah, I thought that too, yes.
But yeah, so one of the big things was every band I played this with, there was always confusion around the intro of this tune, because you hear the record and you hear that first guitar strum and you think beat one, but it is not.
It's the and of 4.
Yeah, so you start off syncopated. So and next time you listen to that, if you sort of are counting through it, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's going to start to make so much more sense when you're trying to play that song.
Yeah, if I count it and just do it by myself for a second, so 1, 2, 3, 4. As opposed to 1, 2, 3, 4. You see, that's a subtle thing, but that's a really impressive tool that they...
And it really comes, especially when there's that guitar lick right at the end.
Totally,
Because I've heard so many different guitar players put that in a different spot, and every time I've played it with a different drummer, it's train wrecked. And then you spend 2 bars trying to get back lined up with the rest of the band. So once we found this out, we had a guitar player come in. He was like, "Oh, you're all wrong. It just comes in on the end of 4, and it's in 4/4 the entire time."
Yeah.
So, and it just made so much sense as soon as we broke it down that way. So let's try playing it that way.
Yeah, well, let's do it the proper way first.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking hard enough. Hang on, let's try it again.
Sam needs more green beer.
It's St. Patrick's Day, come on. There we go.
Yeah. And have you ever found when you're playing that before, a lot of confusion when to come in for that guitar part?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And after you blew my mind that fateful afternoon,
Welcome.
I went back and I watched some live footage.
Yeah.
And who counts that out? I think Glenn Fry counts that in on the acoustic,
So.
and he, he's right there on the end of 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and my mind was blown a second time.
Mm-hmm. And that's the same kind of thing about the syncopated intros.
Yeah.
Like just with the AC/DC song,
Yeah.
is you hear that first note and your brain is trained to hear that as beat 1. So sometimes that can be a really hard habit to break.
Oh yeah.
But once you can sort of get around it and start thinking about it and sort of thinking backwards on it to try and line it up, it makes everything so much easier.
Yeah, it's clever writing trickery, isn't
Yeah.
it? To make, and again, that's just sort of 3 chords. Well, 4, 5, I guess.
Most of them.
Yeah, but that's such a great sounding record. Even now, anytime I put the Eagles on now, I'm still loving it just as much as the first time I heard it because of those clever little things.
And just the arrangements of how the band's layered in, and just the singing too, the vocals there are.
Yeah, everyone in that band sings good enough to be the lead singer.
And they could be.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, so we're going to jam a little more now. We're going to do a little Latin jam. And yeah, we're just going to have some...
You want to play through that one more time, or you want to...
Join
No,
it?
we'll just do the last. Let's do the last.
All right, yeah. So you know, lots of fun stretching out there, and we were sort of rehearsing earlier, and Brent mentioned something that I found quite interesting on support.
What did I mention? I don't remember.
You mentioned how a lot of the times when the drummer gets to take his solo,
oh, yeah,
everyone buggers off for a beer.
Yeah, yeah, he gets left out to dry, or she, for that matter.
Right.
And so, especially if, I mean, there shouldn't be drum solos if you're club drumming anyway, but on the chance that you're playing Moby Dick or you're playing something else where the guitars have to go out, then it's okay. But when everybody's accompanying everybody up here, and that should not stop. They should keep the forward motion of the song going so that the drummer has something to play to, because most drummers, you know, we run out of ideas that aren't, you know, once we're beyond, there's no motivation to do anything more, you know, unless you actually know more. So it's tough. So the song going, helping it going forwards, it keeps ideas flowing in your head. And I mean, this is all completely impromptu, you know, we didn't really work anything out solo-wise. They're just ideas that we've worked on so many times that we can just pull out at the drop of a hat, which makes it fun and interesting and a little scary with you guys watching. Because I'm not typically a drum solo player.
Well, I thought it was great, man. Loved it.
Wonderful.
This is for Mike.
Yes.
I noticed when you were playing your solo,
Yeah.
after you came out of that, you kind of fiddled with your knobs, and then you also kind of adjusted your...
This is a family show.
Oh, yeah.
There are children here.
We'll talk after about that.
You know what you were doing there?
Oh, yeah, so during the solo, just to try and get a bit more of a tone sort of above it, and that's the tough thing with bass is when it's really kind of low and muddy, depending how your pickups are sort of set, that stuff's not really going to cut a ton when there's a ton of other stuff going on. So what I was doing is I was going a bit more to like a bridge position, just to get a little sharper tone that's going to cut through the mix of it, and so it'll stand out against kind of those other tones and sounds that are going on. And then going back into, I guess when Brent had his solo after that, sort of warming up the tone by going back to kind of using both pickups. And one thing to sort of emulate more of like an upright sound is you doing this right hand muting thing. To really sort of change the tone of it and not sort of muddy everything down with these big big sort of long notes. So I'm really just kind of cutting the sustain and sort of emulating like old Fender basses that had foam stuck under the bridge that really took all the sustain out of the notes and kind of some of those other fundamentals to get more of a percussive style.
Just a quick question. Are you using the palm of your hand to mute the...
Yeah. So it's all sort of based off that, and then using like thumb, index, middle. And then you can do lots of sort of ghosting in it, like... And just that bass line by itself is...
It makes me want to dance. I just want to get up and dance.
Yeah. So I can really add a lot more ghosting and sort of muted notes to it to add more rhythm to it. And sort of add more percussive elements and kind of emulating more of what Brent's doing, but trying to add some more rhythm and density to it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
That's very cool.
Oh, we got another question here, yes.
Can you clone yourself and hang around Calgary?
I try.
There's a huge shortage of you here.
Oh yeah.
That's an interesting thing actually, because all of the good bass players are gigging. You know, it's like they're sort of the rarest of all the Pokemon.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah,
A good bass player.
Oh yeah, few and far between.
We've got two of them in the room here.
Yeah.
My goodness.
I got to go to a gig, so you can take over after.
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to play with two of the best bass players around, and they're both in this room, so yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. All right, we're going to do Roxanne.
One more? Is there any other questions about anything that we've talked about, or anything you want us to talk about? Anything? Anyone?
Yeah, a little Q&A.
Just going back to Smoke on the Water, I noticed you were playing it the proper way, not the garage band way.
With fingers, you mean?
No, you're not playing with the open.
Oh, yeah, right. Actually, I was. Yeah. My big thing with that is like how the pick sound. That doesn't sound as real as... I think it was written in tune. I might treat myself to a little tune up. But yeah, you see a lot of people do like the big, which is also incorrect. I guess what you're talking about there is actually playing the first part fret 5 here rather than as open strings. I think that, you know, that can add a bit of warmth as soon as you're playing on the thicker strings. Things aren't as trebly, and you know, someone like Richie Blackmore, who's a Strat guy, and he doesn't have a humbucker in the bridge position, so he'd be trying to fight that twang, I guess. But I've got a humbucker in here, so it's a little bit more warm already.
You also have all your tone knobs ripped off too, so you don't have that same kind of control as like...
Right, yeah.
So that's like wide open tone,
right?
Compared to like huge difference.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks for the question, man. Anyone else? All good?
Dion's shaking his head back there. He has a question.
Dion.
Oh, he's just taking notes. That's all he's doing.
Taking his earplugs
He just took his earplugs.
These guys aren't ever going to be back in this room.
Okay.
One more? Okay. One of my favorite bands. I can't speak for you guys, but The Police was Stuart Copeland was a huge influence on me, and I wish I could play his hi-hat even a tiny little bit the way he plays it, but we'll do our best on this tune anyway.
And you know, back to the tracks thing.
Tracks for this song. But Mike is going to play Milli Vanilli for us today. Yeah.
One night only.
Yeah. I'm seeing these young kids are going, what is Milli Vanilli? They're like...
She related to Hannah Montana?
All right, here we go.
to everyone for coming, and yeah, we really enjoyed playing for you, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks, Kate. Is there any questions?
Oh yeah,
Any other questions? Anyone?
Oh yeah, yeah, questions. Any more questions?
So how do you kind of form your network, like you know, setting up and meeting people who have the same kind of passion that you have as well?
Okay. I don't know what websites there are now, but when I moved here 10 years ago, I put an advert on a website called bandmix.ca. And that's actually how I met Kyle McKerney, sort of 10 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, and he called me up. And yeah, many early connections I made were because of that. So I think that would be a good place to start. I'm sure things are better now. You know, Facebook is much bigger. And there must be some sort of a YYC musicians.
Yeah, there's Calgary band jam pages. Lots of those. I can't remember all of them, but if you're especially Facebook, if you go in and type in YYC or Calgary Jam, there'll probably be a decent amount of sites. For me, it was really going and hanging out at jams, though. I mean, that's where I kind of cut my teeth on playing all the different kinds of music that I learned how to play, including country and blues. And that's where I met probably 80% of the people that I met. And the more you play and the better you play, the higher proficiency of performers you meet, and you just keep going and going and going and just keep stepping up the ladder. And yeah, it was a long haul, but definitely worth it. I've been drumming now. This is my 40th year. Wow. So yeah, obviously it's okay.
How old are you, Mike?
Less than 40. But for me, going to jams was a huge one. Like, I lived in Winnipeg for about 6 years, going to university there for music, and I met a ton of musicians there, and that was a really big thing. But when I moved back to Calgary, I had a few gigs lined up, but I would have 3 weeks off with nothing to do, and I didn't know anyone in town. So I just started going to every jam I could. And I met, that's how I met Kyle,
right? Who
probably introduced me to you guys,
right? Yeah,
going through those jams.
Yeah. You and Brad showed up at one of our shows.
Oh yeah.
At across from State there. Forget.
Was it Loco Lose?
Yeah,
I don't think.
Yeah, that's what it was.
That wasn't it. I've never been there.
That wasn't it.
Yeah,
No.
it was you. I have a picture of you.
No.
Yeah.
Pre-beard.
Yeah. Oh, maybe that was it. I don't remember anything before this. But yeah, like getting out, meeting musicians, just talking to people. The jams was good. Like, I hosted a jam at the Blues Can for about a year as well. I met tons of guys. I learned a lot about playing as well too. Just getting to play with some really, really great musicians and some less than really, really great musicians too. Like, I learned a lot about trying to play with different people, especially as a bass player, playing with different drummers. Because for me, that's the biggest thing, is trying to hook up with a new drummer when I start playing, because there's not always an immediate connection.
Yeah.
And you sort of develop more skills the more you do it, playing with different people.
That's a very special and sacred thing, isn't it? The relationship between a drummer and a bass player.
Yes.
Mostly.
Most of the time.
Once I learned that I wasn't right all the time, then it became a good relationship. But yeah, so yeah, if there's any advice I have for any musician, it doesn't matter what you play. You don't always have to be right. You don't always have to know that it's the exact, this is the way it was on the record. I'm telling you. Well, it doesn't matter. Just solve the problem as a band, not just as one-on-one. Yeah.
And sort of just being open to learn. Like, I can't count the number of times that I've done something wrong on a gig. But
I can. I have them all written down here.
Oh, yeah, he's got the list. I have to forward it to him every month. But I've learned more playing on stage than I did going to university. I think, honestly, way more skills. And like, because you did not go to university at all.
No, I had like a handful of guitar lessons when I was in school, and I'm quite fortunate to have been around playing guitar since YouTube's existed. So like watching videos of Jimi Hendrix and you know, all of my favourites has been sort of my education, I suppose, and you know, playing with bands as well.
Yeah, and I always tried to play with the best musicians that I could.
It's nice being the worst one in the band, isn't it?
Oh, that's constantly like, my guitar player just walked in over there, and he is typically the best one in the band. So I've learned so much from Image. But yeah, trying to surround yourself with better musicians is such a valuable thing. I've learned way more doing that.
For sure.
And met tons of people too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah. I guess I should start doing that.
I'm already doing it right now.
There's that I'm right all the time thing. All right, anybody else? Any other questions? Anyone? Yes.
Yeah, can you talk about the kind of cues you're giving each other, like a solo?
Yeah, mostly eyes. Yeah.
My favourite thing is kind of the double eye contact with nodding.
Yeah.
You know, if something's coming up, I'm going to make eyes with Brent, not in that way, and then Mike, and then Brent again, and then Mike. You know, nodding the whole time, and
that becomes really hard when Sam's soloing though, because he's got his guitar up.
Yes,
his hair's in the way.
So all I can see is up his nose, so it's difficult to make any kind of eye contact when he's soloing. But yeah, it's mostly eye communication, mostly, you know, physical cues of some kind. With the tracks, you know, we didn't have a lot of time to put some of this stuff together, so those were cues that I would throw with a hi-hat or playing louder or softer or something like that. But yeah, that's just important, especially at a jam, right? That everybody goes and has their idea of, you know, well, this is what the song is on the record, but when you're at a jam, very rarely is it like it is on the record, because the guitar player wants to solo and the drummer wants to play every note he or she knows. So if you don't keep your head up, it's really hard to follow what's going on. So yeah, that's the key, keeping your head up and watch what's going on. Well, and listen too. Yeah.
I think like ending songs, I'll try to have a discussion with the drummer prior to playing about who's going to end things, because, you know, if both of you are trying to put the final stab in there, then it can be a
We only missed one. We actually only missed one.
Yeah, we missed one.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah, that's a good ratio.
But, you know, using like the headstock and bringing it in for like when we do a blues jam, you know. That kind of a thing. Yeah.
And I find you start to learn what people's tendencies are too. Like if I'm watching Brent, there's sometimes I know what he's doing. Like you can probably speak to this the most, playing with him for as long.
Yeah, try not to watch him.
That's probably best. But you start to like see what people do when they're trying to cue things, and you learn general tendencies. Because I remember when I was hosting a jam, we had, you know, I'd play with 7 or 8 people at least a night. And typically you start to see the same sort of things and you can start to predict them. And the biggest one is listening. I always think about it, it's like you have one ear for yourself, one ear for everyone else. You have to split that attention both ways and pay attention to what you're doing and what everyone else is too.
Yeah.
That's really good. I just learned something there. That's really great. One ear for yourself, one ear for everybody else. Wow.
Yeah.
What happens if you only have one ear working?
Then you listen to yourself.
Okay. I like that. That's really great. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. See, you learn. It's constant learning all the time. Yeah.
Any more questions? Okay.
Wow, silent bunch, eh?
Well, thank you so much again, and yeah, we'll see you next time. Much
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very
for coming
much.
out.
Thanks,
And,
Lon McRae,
thanks
for
Dion
having
and
us.
everybody here, Darcy and Billy and Pat for doing sound. A big hand for Pat doing sound.
Absolutely, yeah.
See you soon.